All right, let's start. Thank you. Stan,
Yeah,
let's
I'm
start.
starting. Yeah, I want to share the screen. Just give me a sec.
Why is it appearing? Okay. Good. Yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending where you are operating from. Um, it is our honor to welcome you to the Week 5 research training. My name is Stanley Okafor. So I'm here to introduce our guest speaker today, which I am privileged to have an interpersonal relationship with. So before I read her profile, I want to quickly introduce who she is personally to me. She's actually one of the first female lecturers who taught me during my undergraduate studies. And she was also my course advisor, my mentor, and somebody who I could always run to in terms of difficult during my undergraduate studies, and even at this present level. So she's a woman I respect so much, and I hold her on the great value. She's a woman of great substance, dedicated, focused, and pushes everyone to explore their potentials in achieving whatever you think you can actually do. So her name is Dr. Sylvia Onyekachi. She's a senior lecturer in the Department of Accounting in the College of Management Sciences, Michael University of Agriculture, Umudike. She holds a PhD in accounting from the same institution with a distinction on tax revenue and economic indices of West African Commonwealth countries. So she's actually one of the leading lecturers in taxation in our set. So when it comes to anything that to do with taxation, just run to her. She always have a solution to your problem. Her research spans taxation, public finance, corporate governance, and sustainable development, with numerous peer review publications in both local and international journals, including recent work on AI-powered taxation monitoring system and digital innovations in tax compliance. She serves as a reviewer for several reputable journals, including Journal of Research and Management and Social Sciences, and Covenant Journals of Business and Social Sciences. Beyond teaching, she coordinates postgraduate research in her department and has supervised numerous student research projects since 2017. She's an associate member of Nigerian Accounting Association and a member of Association of Nigerian National Accountants of Nigeria. So, ma'am, with honor, I want to welcome you on board to have the floor and to share your wide expertise knowledge on research. As I said, I have been a direct beneficial of your knowledge by virtue of classroom teaching and also by virtue of one-on-one mentorship. So, as I told you earlier on, she's a woman I hold on a high value because of her word of knowledge. She's an embodiment of knowledge, and she's a woman who believes that there is no limitation to what you can achieve. Ma, please, we are happy to welcome you as you take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley. and to all organizers and members of this great occasion. I am very delighted to be here with you people. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
Yes, yes, we can.
Thank you very much for the privilege to be with you people on this week 5 of your program. Thank you. I
Stan,
want to share my slides now.
Stan, you can stop sharing so that she can share hers.
Okay, ma, go ahead and show your PowerPoint.
So let me make her co-host so that she'll be able to share. Then she can share now.
Can you see my slide now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm happy to, like I said before, I'm happy to be here today to talk about data collection. My own team is specifically on collecting high quality data for meaningful research. So the learning objectives of this meeting is on understanding different types of data collection methods, how to design effective survey questionnaires and interview schedules, collect primary and secondary data ethically, code and organize collected data, clean data sets and prepare them for analysis, implement implement a structured data collection plan. So that is what we hope to achieve by the end of this discussion. So I am the first one on understanding data collection methods. We want to look at the um, two classification of data that we can have as far as research is concerned. The primary data is the first-hand data collected directly for your specific research objectives. It refers to the original and first-hand data that the researcher gathered specifically to address the research problem he has identified. So because of that, it is tailored directly to the researcher's inquiry and offers high relevance, temporal currency, and direct operational control over measurement quality. So, and but secondary data, on the other hand, is a pre-existing data that other people have gathered at different time. So it can include published literature, institutional records, government database, and even financial reports. So they are originally collected by people other than the researcher. It can also be the researcher, but not particularly for that research purpose. So it is a pre-existing data that the researcher um, now want to use maybe to operationalize his own variables he has identified for the purpose of the study. So with that knowledge, we now look at how to collect primary data. So um, there are two ways we can collect primary data. We can collect it quantitatively or qualitatively. Quantitative method of collecting primary data focuses on numerical measurements, structured metrics, and statistical generalizability. The tools the major tool that is always applied when we are collecting primary data quantitatively is a structured questionnaire, close-ended polls. It is possible that interviews can also be used to collect data quantitatively, but then interview lean towards qualitative more than. But this is research. People can actually tailor it to suit what, because of maybe a peculiarity on a particular purpose. But then we are, for the purpose of this discussion, we are looking at structural surveys and questionnaire chiefly as primary data collection instruments. Okay, questionnaire can be administered through online platforms, like we can use Google Form, Kobo Toolbox, and all the rest to collect, to administer questionnaire. It makes it easy. You can from your country gather opinion of a set of people that are in different places through online platforms, through distributing your questionnaire online. Okay, but we also have questionnaires distributed on paper and even face to face, where a researcher maybe fills up the questionnaire as the respondent answers the question. So, that is still a questionnaire. The important thing is that it uses standardized item batteries, that's Likert scales, to convert the constructs into quantifiable metrics that will now be used for analysis. That is the important thing about questionnaire, and that is why we refer it as quantitative method. So whatever happens, whatever questions that are posed to the respondents are converted through this Likert scale into numerical forms that will now be used for analysis in order to solve a particular research problem. And we also have experimental or quasi-experimental design, which is also a method of quantitative primary data collection. This one involves manipulation of independent variable under controlled conditions to cause causal impacts on a dependent variable, while controlling for other confounding factors. Now, people that are of management science, there are also researchers. The researchers in sciences are the ones that are more familiar with, or that have to conduct researches on that have to do with experiments. So at this stage, they have a checklist or a questionnaire where they feel the results of what has happened to their maybe items, or what do you call it, when there are change, when they offer treatment to to their items of interest or respondents, the whatever resulting effect it has, they fill it out, and with that they can now um uh, analyze and come up with a solution to the research problem they have identified. So that is purely experimental. They control what happens, they manipulate the independent variable so as to see how the effect it will have on the dependent variable. And they take the result of the outcomes and fill it up to in order to convert and have figures that will now be used for the analysis. So we also have a quasi-experimental design, which people in management sciences can also can also come across. Okay, because I'm trying to lean into life experiences, so that I can drive home what I'm trying to say. So because sometime during my MSc, I conducted a research that has to do with quasi experimental. Is a bit different from experimental design because it has to do with real life. It has to do with human beings. But one thing that still connects it to experimental design is that there is a treatment offered to those respondents. So in the case of quasi-experimental, I want to give that example. The research has to do with finding out the audit expectation gap of people, of a particular set of people. Or people who do not have accounting knowledge, they have their own expectation of what an audit should be. So we say that the correct expectation and over expectation of people is when you have the over expectation, that's what people normally expect. The auditor should be able to do this, do that, and what the law expects or empowers an auditor to do. So the difference between that overreaching expectation and from the proper expectation of what an auditor should do. The difference between these both things is what we call audit expectation gap. And so if a researcher is trying to offer a treatment to a defined set of people to see whether that treatment will close the audit expectation gap, is a quasi-experimental design. So that is what I was able to do at that particular at that particular point in time. Sorry, we took the audit expectation of year one students who just have finished their year one, but they have not had any teaching on audit. They have not offered any course on audit. So we asked them few questions, gave them questionnaire to identify their audit expectation. Good. So they fill the questionnaire. After their 300 level, when they must have done a course on audit and got to know what the law expects an auditor to do and what audit is all about and the steps an auditor take and the powers of an auditor. So we applied the questionnaire again. And you see that from the result of that study, we noticed that there was a difference in their audit expectation. So that is a good example of a quasi-experimental design. So this particular exercise involves a manipulation of independent variable. So using a treatment, and we also have to control for other confounding factors, which can include possibility of people missing classes, students who do not even listen in class, students who were not able to grab. They attended the class, listened, but did not grab. These are confounding factors that you also have to take note of in the research. So another type of quantitative primary data collection method is structured field audits. Structured field audit is a standardized observation framework where enumerators are field assistants, because most times in research, especially big financed research, you see that the research team members cannot be everywhere at the same time to be able to achieve all they need to do. They may have to employ the assistance of field assistants or enumerators, as they are called here. So these enumerators record numeric counts, frequency tallies, or precise environmental parameters according to a predetermined rubric. That's a checklist that they were given. So unlike open field observation, which may be qualitative, structured audit converts these physical conditions into quantitative actionable data using a predefined metric. So we are saying that the use of predefined metric and numerical codes and scales is what makes a data collection procedure quantitative. So structured field audit is an example of a quantitative primary data collection method. So I showed here an example of structured field audit. If, for example, this particular company, Nutritious Margarine, as a consumer brand, is trying to audit 50 superstores to evaluate the product placement, pricing accuracy, and stock level. Maybe doing a particular promotion, they want to actually research on how these things on how these three items are being complied with in the superstores. They will have a checklist which these field assistants or enumerators will use to work. That is an example of a structured field audit. So the checklist, example of what may be contained in this checklist is prominence. It asks this kind of question: is the product located at eye level on the main aisle? When you come into the superstore, is it located on an eye level where people, an onlooker, an average visitor to the superstore will be able to sight it? The numerator will have to tick either yes or no. Now, yes will be yes according to the research metric, can be scored 1, while no is scored 0. Then we talk of compliance. Is the promotional discount banner displayed? And, if you are coming into a superstore, items on promotion are naturally displayed, either banner, something. There must be something that should attract you, that a promotion is ongoing for that particular product. So this Nutritious Margarine want to know, did they even comply to display that discount banner? Yes or no. The numerator will have to tick accordingly. Then facing count. They will want to count the physical number of items visible on the front shelf. You can agree with me that another way of knowing, enticing a customer, is the quantity of the items. Some people naturally, when they want to get items, let's say if somebody wants to buy tin tomatoes, if you have two shops and one of the shop have enough many quantities of that tin tomato stacked out on their table, and the other shop just have one or two, you will be naturally allowed to go to the place where they have enough and much quantity. So that is what this structural field audit is also building into the checklist. Or what are how many number of physical items are displayed on the front shelf, and the numerator is now expected to count. Is it above 24? This is not a checklist. Or of course, it's the researcher that developed it. You can decide to count all. You can decide to put a kind of scale. Is it above 20? Is it below 20, and all that? So price verification. The checklist also want to know, does the shelf tag match the promotional suggested retail price? So if no, the enumerator will have to put the discrepancy amount. So this is a kind of structured field audit. Field audits most times are qualitative, but it can be structured. Just like I said that even interview, which is a qualitative primary data collection instrument, can also be structured to be used as a quantitative. The only underlying factor is that in quantitative primary data collection, responses are quantified with an established metric, which will now convert the scores into numbers that will now be analyzed to solve the research problem. Okay, we now go to primary data collection via qualitative method, and this is where we have in-depth semi-structured interview. Interviews utilizes open-ended interview schedule to explore respondent attitudes, lived experiences, and contextual mechanics. You also have focus group discussions, where you have interaction group sessions that a moderator is guiding to observe non-verbal cues, group consensus, and divergent perspectives on a targeted phenomena. So the moderator now can be the researcher or can be the person collecting the responses, and his observations will now his even non-verbal cues, maybe hesitation or maybe surprise. You pose a question and somebody was so surprised before somebody exhibited a surprise or shock before he answer. It can also serve as what will form part of the um, part of the judgment or um, or conclusion of the research. Participants and field observation. So participants and you see that field audit is coming back again under qualitative. So this one, the researcher is immersed within a specific socio-operational context in order to collect unstructured field notes, contextual descriptions, and behavioral logs. There are two items or two methods inside this participant and field observation. Participant and field observation occurs when a researcher enters a natural real-world environment to observe behaviors by himself and interactions as they happen. He does not distribute questionnaire and wait. He does not call people to ask them. He goes into the real-world scenario and find out and collects his data as it is happening. So the difference between there is, like I said, there are two methods inside this third one. Participants is when the researcher is, or the enumerator or field assistant is actively involved in the scene and as he is taking record. And the observation is when the person is in that environment but he's not participating in the event as he's taking his data. So this is it. The key distinction lies in the researcher's degree of involvement. Like I've explained, the researcher is immersed in the scene for participant observation and joins in the daily routine or culture of the group that he is studying. For example, a forensic accounting and fraud auditing case, we have a participant observation. A forensic researcher now wants to study how internal control gets overridden in high risk corporate environment. He wants to understand why or how internal control gets overridden, or how do people override internal control in high risk corporate environment. To do this, if the researcher takes on an active short-term role in the internal audit department, he takes a role there, or he is working as part of the team, he is doing a participant observation. He's actively involved in the scene. So what is he looking for? He looks for how finance team members handle verbal approval requests for out-of-budget expenses, things that are not budgeted, and do not go through how are they not going through the controls that have been established, the routines, maybe sign up a voucher, request form, take it to the people that should authorize it, wait for the time it will be authorized before you will now get the money disbursed and maybe do what you want. So if the researcher seats become part of the people that's become part of the team and see for himself how they are working around the established protocol to bypass the protocols, and even the non-verbal reactions, how the chief officer can come in and say, send this money, pay this so person so amount, even without doing the necessary protocols. So the researcher is there, seeing it as it is happening. That is an example of participant observation. So there he captures real life procedural deviations, informal office dynamics, even what was not said, he sees it, and that's what I mean. What I've called nonverbal reactions that employees that an informal office dynamics that employees surveys or static policy documents completely miss. So when you share a questionnaire, people may not be able to write all those things or tell you how it happened, but participant observation can actually grab it and make an informed research out of it. Okay, the field observation, as distinct from participant field observation, is as distinct from participant observation. The researcher remains within the environment, but he does not participate. He just records interactions without intervening in the process. I give an example of an economist who wants to study how small-scale informal traders adopt mobile money apps versus cash transactions. So to execute this, the researcher sits near transaction points across busy urban markets during peak trading hours. And then what is he observing or recording? He observes the transaction completion speed per purchase. He observes the system friction points where the payment hangs or the money transfer did not go through. How did they uh, now solve it? You know, did the transaction did the transaction fail, or was the item that was being sold, was it not sold again? Did the customer have to leave it or express gross disappointment with inability to go with his items, or how did they resolve it? Customer preferences during uh, high volume periods. Did the customer decide to switch back to cash when digital networks stall, or did they wait it out, or was there any other resolution method? Maybe some customers will say, "Go, just give me your number or your address, or okay, I will, if the money comes back, I will refund, or if the money comes back, you come and pick your goods." How did they? What did the customer prefer? You know, so the value it adds to the research is that it provides the field observer with objective operational data on user behavior and system usability in chaotic real-world settings, instead of coming back to ask the consumer, how did how what do you prefer? How do you see mobile money apps versus cash transactions? You can come at a very good time when the person will not remember the problems he had, or you can be asking it to the people that are using um, cash transfer platforms that do not pose problems, and they will give you, based on their own perspective, and you conclude your research. But when you sit there as a field observer, you will see different types of people. Those who are using all these mobile apps that are very, very good, because we know the mobile apps that are very good, that have minimal network interruption. When you talk about cash transfers, you see them, and you see the people that are also still using the commercial bank apps that have been known to give. You see different types of people, and then your research is more robust and comprehensive. So the strengths, like I've said before, you have high ecological validity. You capture actual human behavior in its natural context rather than reported behavior, which is often prone to recall error. Like I said, you may come at a good time and the person tells you, "Oh, well, it's very good mobile app, I prefer it, this, that." And maybe he has forgotten or he just decided not to say the difficulties he passed, or maybe he's using the app that did not give him problem. If you conclude based on that, your research may have some limitation. Then there are this social desirability bias is also part of it. you can come to me, and I wouldn't want you to think that I'm not using mobile app, or that I have like people that the Gen Z will always say that their parents do not have are not does not have tech flair, and so they don't like all these mobile transactions. So some parents that, or even some Gen Zs that do not have that tech flair, will want to, when you're asking them, they want to pretend that they have it. That's social desirability bias. They will now tell you what you want to hear, which is not what is the actual position that the research should take. Then the limitation of this participants and field observation, the participation, the limitation that it can have is that when people know that they are being observed, their behavior may artificially alter. So for the participant observer, you may have to walk or be blend into the field for as long as possible before taking his responses. You may have to blend, stay for some time, so that it will not look as if they want. People will now lose that social desirability, trying to do it all well, So, and even for the the observer, you may want to come in and stay as someone that is waiting for somebody, not to show yourself as a observer, where people will now come and start forming, if I will have to use that. So on general, one of the strengths of primary data collection is that it is highly specific. It has complete ownership of data lineage. It aligns with your research parameters and also gives fresh insight, especially when you are dealing with interview. Interview generates fresh insight. That is the basic strength of an interview. You may think you know everything, especially when you are researching on issues that has to do with AI, or maybe other contemporary issues that you may not even have complete knowledge on. Contemporary issues, even people that are in the field may not even have the complete knowledge of it. They may not be seeing it from the perspective that a respondent can give. So if you want to be open to fresh insights, then you should consider interview as your data collection instrument. But one of the limitations of primary data collection is that it requires resource. It's resource intensive. It requires time, capital, that is cost, labor, and all these things are also impacts on the quality of work you have. You can have enumerators and field assistants who will not do the work. Okay, they will just go and do what they want, or they will go and fill it up. Okay, let me ask. They will now ask Mr. A, what do you think? And they will say, okay, Mr. B. They will fill up the distance and bring back to you. So potential for numerator or interviewer bias is also there. Vulnerability to non-response or social disability. I've explained this social disability bias as how it can impact on primary data. So you also have this non-response where people decide not to answer, or people decide to skip a question. So that's the key trade-offs. So we want to look at secondary data collection. Types of secondary data: we have institutional and regulatory repositories, we have organizational and internal records, we have published academic literature and databases. That is where you can get your secondary data. Like we said before, secondary data is already there, is existing, but some of them are not. There are ones that are on public domain. You can actually look at it, and you can, with secondary data, you can actually gather. You can decide to gather all your data today, and you will succeed. But for primary data, it is not so, because you have to design, do this, vet, conduct reliability tests to ensure that your instrument is valid before you can now proceed. So Secondary data is already there. You just have to, okay, but for the ones that are internal records, you may need to apply, see the people that are involved, and now read up their data usage policy, so that you can be able to stick with it if you are given access to the data. So evaluation framework that guides secondary data is methodological integrity. How we are the original sampling frame, measurement tools, and data cleaning protocols defined. How did you arrive at your sample frame, your population size, the data, sorry, the sampling technique, and even sample size determination method, how you may need to explain it, document it, and even define how you were able to clean your data. We'll come to data cleaning later. Okay. You have to, another evaluation is evaluation procedure is that is about measurement concordance. Did the operational definition used in your secondary data set match your theoretical construct? For example, we that are in accounting, sometimes you see people that want to study audit quality, and for the lack of for their pursuit to use secondary data, they want to measure audit quality with audit fees. And personally, I will always think, does the amount of money paid for an audit, is it justified to be a proxy for the quality of audits performed? People will argue, yes, if it's a big four, they will, the quality of audit, they will give you this, that, and all that. But as well as I know, that you can pay a huge amount for an item, and the item will still not be as quality as the person that pay a lower amount for it. That is just the truth. So and even the audit team that came for that exercise may also offer more quality service than the other. You can see a small audit firm, because of the team or the people that are involved in it, and all the audit independence they have already checked while coming for that job, and they will be able to deliver a more quality audit than. So when these people continue, like when these people use audit fee to measure audit quality, it may not actually it's always arguable, but then it may not always match. The measurement concordance will not always be perfect, especially for secondary data. So that is one thing that one upper hand that primary data has. Okay. Temporal relevance. Does the time frame cover reflect the dynamic realities of your study? When you are working with secondary data, you are restricted to the time frame that secondary data is available. I have at a time we want to do a study that has to do with West Africa, and we found out that some of the countries, their data sets for the variable we are looking for are there from all the years that are covered. Am I still audible, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm still audible. Okay. So we found out that all the years are there, but for Nigeria, a particular time frame is missing, up to 10, 15 years. It becomes a problem. So that is not even that is a problem of temporal relevance. It can become an impact on the research, because the research has already been proposed, before we discovered that. And to delete Nigeria, because it is our own country and we are studying from inside Nigeria, to delete it became a problem. You will now be what will the the people that are coming to vet the research, what would they say? If you are from Nigeria and you are studying West Africa and you're meeting Nigeria, and Nigeria is a very relevant country when in West Africa when you're talking about the economy. So it is a problem. That's the things you need to also consider when you are using secondary data. Then source authority and bias. Is the publishing entity independent, transparent, and subject to peer review or statutory oversight? Now, if you get data from CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, you are sure the way you will depend on that data will not be the way you will depend on it when it is from maybe an independent firm, some independent firm that are now giving some independent firms are now giving sustainability scores for different companies. When you purchase those kind of data and use it for analysis, and examiner comes, you will now be looking at the he wants to measure how people know that firm. Is the firm what they are giving? Is it how are they measuring their sustainability? All those things. So these are the things you also need to consider when you are using a secondary data. So we look at the key trade-offs: cost and time efficient. Yes, that is secondary data. It is cost and time efficient. It enables longitudinal and broad cross-country panel analysis. Yes. Yes, it's always when you talk about longitudinal, maybe getting from studying for over 40 years. I have not seen a primary data that was collected for over 40 years. If the researcher will get old before that time. So, but this secondary data you can stay in your place without even moving out from your state and collect a secondary data of over 100 years for 5 or more countries. That is the strength. And it grants access to macro level data that is unachievable via primary data collection. Limitations have, like I've said before, there is lack of control over the measurement error, and you risk missing variables. Yes, like I've mentioned in one of our life experience, potential mismatch in definitions, like the case of audit quality, that for the lack of how to measure audit quality in secondary terms, they have to now use the audit fee and other things. Okay, there is risk of outdated information too, because it gives you can even want to do a study, and the last time the data for that study will be, or for that particular variable you are looking for, was updated as 5 years ago. Now, if you use that kind of data, a critic may be like that this thing, the conclusion you are offering it does not cover what is happening in contemporary times, because you stopped 5 years ago, and you cannot do anything because it's secondary data that the people or the authority that should produce it stopped 5 years ago. There was a time we in management sciences have that kind of issue a lot, when everything was still on analog, unlike what we have now, that even if you want the results, maybe economic results of a nation that happened in the last quarter, if you go online, you may see it. But then it was not like that. It can take up to 3 years for them to produce another CBN, what do they call it that time? CBN bulletin. Okay, you are always measuring 1 year or 2 years back. So that is one of the limitations of secondary data. We proceed. This is a comparative summary of primary data and secondary data origin. You look at it, we have already gone through this. On realism and alignment, primary data is perfectly tailored to the research objective, while some secondary data requires proxy adjustments or compromise. Cost and speed, secondary data have upper hand in that one, with rapid retrieval at low or zero marginal cost, while primary data will have to take high time and financial investment. Control over bias. There is direct control in primary data. There is passive reliance on other people's other people's rigor, or their primary collectors' rigor. Then data lineage, incomplete visibility into collection anomalies That is for secondary data. But for primary data, you have full transparency from raw to processed state. And even in your work, you can fully state the limitation to your readers for them to know what happened in the field. But that is not always the case for secondary data. So the second section is dealing with how to design effective questionnaire and interview schedule. So we start with questionnaire. But you will have to know that the quality of measurement instrument is a major foundation to the precision of the research. If you have flawed instruments, it can introduce systemic measurement errors such as non-response, social disability, and constant misinterpretation, and you have a wrong conclusion without even knowing it. So that is why the designing of your questionnaire or interview schedule is of paramount interest to the researcher and to the audience. Okay. So questionnaire design focus on translating abstract theoretical constructs into standardized operational metrics while minimizing total survey error. So before writing the items, you define your target variable explicitly. The target variable is definitely from your research objective. And that is why you must know how to construct your research objective in a way that is simple and straight to the point. Because when your research objective is valid, is researchable, you will be able to quickly take out your research variables from the objectives. And when you take out the research variables from the objectives, that is when you'll be able to know if the dimension, get a valid indicator, and pose a valid or effective survey question that will solve that research problem. For example, we say here that for questionnaire, you have to have a theoretical construct, identify the dimension and indicator, then construct the survey question. For example, financial literacy is a theoretical construct, and we are looking at the behavioral aspect of it. The indicator, a good indicator of a behavioral aspect of financial literacy is savings habits. And a survey question that can elicit responses on savings habits is, how often do you save part of your earnings? So this is a very good way or primary way of um, developing your questionnaire from your research objective. The theoretical constructs that is tied to their variable, the dimension you are working on, indicator, and survey question. And we have another example. There is an objective that wants to assess consumers' level of awareness of the food sharing initiative based on frequency of purchase in the open market. One of the objectives of this study is to assess consumers' level of awareness of a concept we are calling food sharing initiative based on frequency of purchase. And we are basing the dimension on the frequency of purchase in the open market. Okay. So the theoretical construct we see the two main construct there is purchase frequency in the open market. Another one is awareness of the food sharing initiative. We want to know, do people know about food sharing? Some food sharing come at a cost, some are free, some you have to pay for it, bulk purchase food sharing, where people put their monies together and bulk item and buy food items in bulk and divide it according to their financial contribution to it. That is food sharing. So which are they even aware that such a thing can happen? How do they get to know? You know, in the open market, how did they get to know from the open market? Okay, we look at the theoretical construct, market shopping behavior, dimension, operational frequency. We look at the indicator, recency and routine of open market visits. And a survey question that comes from that is, over the past 30 days, how often, how frequently have you purchased food items from a traditional or open market? You may want to test awareness. And on awareness, you may want to start from spontaneous recognition. By asking, when you think of community-based food assistance or food sharing, which one comes to mind? You know, you want to know if they know any brand or any type of this food sharing that I've described. Which one do they know? Without assisting them, you want to know how much they know without being assisted to recall. Then you can also try assisted recognition by prompting the identification of a particular one. You can ask, how have you ever heard or seen information regarding bulk food purchase sharing? Now you are prompting them to a particular one. That is what a survey question can do. A survey question can be used. You know, there are different types of food sharing or different concepts of food sharing. The concept of food sharing that they have in the Western world is slightly different. Is in fact very different from what we have in Nigeria, what I have in my locality here. Yes, I got to read that food sharing in Europe and all the places, some of them are free of charge. You just log in, and people will tell you their food program is going on in so place. You just come and pick the items you want and go. And some people, they pick at a little price, you know. But here in our own locality, when we talk of food sharing, we are talking about bulk food purchase and sharing. That's what we are talking about. We're not talking about that one, because that one, me personally, I've not heard about it here. The only time we hear it is people that are doing charity. That one, you don't come to pick. They will give you what they want to give you. So it's different from what they run in the West and other parts of the world. So what we have is purchase, bulk food purchase and sharing. Awareness. So you want to ask question based on your own dimension and indicator to extract what your study is really, because in your study, you know whether you are covering all the types of food sharing or you are tailoring specific to your locality. So you need all these to get them. First of all, you have to get the main construct, then you go to the right dimension, use the proper indication, and develop a survey question that will tackle or help you to achieve. You can see several survey questions being collapsed into one construct. Yes, it is possible in order to get a balanced idea, and depending on what the researcher is looking for. Okay, drafting survey question to analyze aware. So having from that table, we see that we can draft this or provide options, because survey questionnaire is always, most times, quantitative questionnaire is close-ended. It's close-ended in the sense that you are given options are given to the respondents to tick, even though that in some occasions, in rare occasions, they can be allowed to state orders where they put things that the researcher was not able to highlight in the questionnaire. So that guidance, that's what make it quantitative. That's what make it, because you want to limit to a particular scale so that you'll be able to measure accordingly, because you are going to translate whatever verbal or theoretical abstraction that they will give you into numerics. Okay, so the first survey question one, like we have in the slide, is talking about routine market engagement, where we have asked, over the past 30 days, how many times have you purchased food items in this? So people will have to tick whether they do daily or almost daily, weekly, 1 to 3 times per week, bi-weekly, twice a month, monthly. You know, you make it to, you put your options in a way that people understand and they tick what they want. And why we have one of the big advantages that online questionnaire online questionnaire gives is that it gives people the room, it gives researchers the room to restrict errors. Yes, because if you give somebody this question, this SQ1, that survey question one, if you give it to someone, the person can tick daily, and again he will tick again monthly. And even the researcher, maybe you filled it and returned to you, and you're collecting from other people, you may not be able to identify, your enumerators may not be able to identify that mistake. And when you get to the point of converting or keying in your responses, you will notice it. You either have to use your initiative to choose what it should be, when that is not the best. You see, you need, but if it is, like you say, you're using a Google, I think it's Google form to do this questionnaire, you will have to restrict the choice to only one. So if somebody chooses daily, he cannot be able to choose monthly, except he comes back and edit it, you know, and submit the right thing. So let's continue. Survey question 2, reliance on open market versus. You can also measure that open market engagement by looking at how much they buy from open markets. So you ask the question, what percentage of your household total food supply is purchased specifically from open market? Is it less than 25% or 25% to 50 and all that? So you see that these two questions are trying to are targeted at the same constructs, looking at their frequency at the open market, because apart from the frequency of your visits, what percentage of your purchase is made in the open market. Okay, now we are not trying to go to the second constraint, which is awareness. The awareness now, apart from they may have visited the market at the number of times they indicated, or buy as much or as little as they indicated. Now, what is the, because that particular objective is trying to see the effect of this one on this one. So you now pose some question again. Uh, are you before today, were you aware of the bulk food purchase sharing initiative? Okay, the person answers yes or no. So if the person answer, that is another strength of online this thing. If you, except you are, if you are using a paper, if you are using a paper questionnaire and you are not there as the person is filling it, because some experts will tell you that if you are there, the person may be tempted. There may be social disability bias, because the person may know what you are actually looking for. You see, so yeah, if you are not there, and the person may feel no and still continue to answer other questions. At the end of the day, you will think you have enough respondents, when you will now see that maybe greater number of people have clicked no and continue to answer the questions. Because at this point, this survey question 3 will now decide whether you are qualified for this respondent this thing or not, whether you are qualified to be a respondent in this research or not. So people who are not aware of bulk food purchase sharing initiative should not be there. You know, they cannot give us what we need. So if it is the online type of questionnaire, as soon as you click no, it takes you to the end of section. And that is, even if you are using it, you still have to know and be able to put the logic that will take people to the end of section if they click no. And if you are using field assistants who are there and are monitoring the filling of the questionnaire. As soon as the person feels no, they can humbly or allow the person to finish, but they know that that particular respondent is off the this thing, off the number they are looking for, and they will proceed to get more people to fill in. So we have survey question 4. How will you rate your level of knowledge? This is another survey question measuring the same construct. People that are not aware, that have only heard the name, they have only heard about it, they will tick if they tick this, if they tick that they have only heard the name, the metric will score them 1. And if they trick slightly away, it will be 2. Moderately aware, 3. Very aware, 4. Extremely aware, that's people who have become pro in it, 5. So that is what makes it quantitative data collection. Now, survey question 4. Looking at the exposure points, contextual awareness. How did you become aware of it? You say select all that apply. At this point, one respondent may have up to 4 selections. They may have 1. They may also it may be possible that they became aware in a method that was not highlighted here, and they will have to specify. So this is how that particular objective can be reduced or constructed into a questionnaire. Note, this kind of structure enables cross-tabulation. By collecting continuous or ordinary measures for market frequency and awareness, the researcher will be able to test the hypothesis that as do frequency, that's research questions that want to know whether frequency in open market is bit higher awareness than low frequency. You'll be able to do so many things when you construct your questionnaire that way. It prevents measurement bias. And one of the things we have to look out for in questionnaire is item wording principle. Avoid double-barreled items. Is the system fast and easy to navigate? No. The correct thing should be to split into 2. Avoid leading language that will make people to think that this is what you want to have, and they will feel it. And this particular structure also mitigates acquisitions bias. It balances item directionality across scales, where you have both positive and worded statements, so that respondents cannot stuck to a particular default or maybe strongly agree at all the time. So it may also interest you that especially those of us in management sciences, that the world is going back to primary data, because primary data have so many strengths. And when you do work by except where your constructs or variables do not have anything to do with primary, or they are better measured by secondary. If you have a research that is better measured with primary data, don't say because people do not have confidence in primary data, this is that. When people do not have confidence is because people were taking advantage. We are at a time there were people used to stay in their house and answer all the questionnaire by themselves. So that is one of the reasons why some people became disinterested or have phobia for primary data. But now it's no longer so, because there are many ways to ensure or to validate whether you actually went to field. So technology has made it possible. So if you have a research that is better handled with primary data, go ahead and do it, because that is the in thing now. So Likert scale, response scale construction. Use fully anchored 5-point or 7-point scales with clear thematic labels. Strongly agree 1. You define it. Know that the negative ones you have to have lower levels, and from the lower to the highest. Mutually exclusive and exhaustive options should not overlap. Should not overlap. Don't make that mistake. If you are giving selecting age ranges in your study, 18 to 24, the next one should be 25 to 34. Don't make mistake of saying 18 to 25, then you now say 25 to 35. So some respondents who are 25 will not know where they belong. And at the time that you have completed the survey, you will now notice the mistake. And so these things are what, and even your categorization will not be valid again. So these are the things you have to look out for at the point of constructing your questionnaire. Looking at our time, okay. Structure items strategically to guide the respondent focus and preserve cognitive energy. The best way to structure your questionnaire is starting by establishing consent and assuring privacy. That is why those days that we have paper questionnaire, we still have paper questionnaires now. People start by introducing who they are, and is saying what the questionnaire is being used for, and maybe assuring the people of their privacy, and also ask for their consent, so that in future, anytime some people have faced litigations because of a research. So you need to always get people's consent, whether online or physical, and especially during interview. And if you are recording it, the consent must be there. Okay. So you start from establishing consent and assuring privacy. You now go to screening, filtering or screening items, just like we have there. The question that asks whether they have heard or are aware of food sharing. As that is a filter question. If that person is saying no, it means it has ended for him. You should take him to finish, because that is the qualification for the next question, or the validity of the research. So as soon as you have assured privacy, you ask the filter question. Then you start with a broad warm-up questions, like, have you heard about, how did you hear, before you go to the core technical questions, and you end with the demographics. Before, we used to start with demographics. You first of all ask people. Sometimes those days we used to ask even name, and people, and we say it's optional. You now ask age and all income status and all that. Now it is now, it has now been said that when you ask people demographics at the beginning, it may be people that want to impress you, or not necessarily you. They may want to impress everybody, or impress themselves that they are earning high, or they want to deflect that they are not earning anything. I don't know whether they are going to take this thing somewhere now, and people will come for me and say that I'm earning millions. Okay, they will feel another thing, and it is now impacting on the success of your research. So you put demographics at the end. Even some people are even uncomfortable stating their right age. Some people want to bring their age down, while others want to take their age up for reasons best known to them. So funnel sequence: move from general to non-threatening questions, and then to specific complex items. Demographics, place sensitive demographics at the end to prevent early fatigue or stereotype threat. Designing interview schedules. Even though interview is a dynamic roadmap that is not rigid, you still have to have a schedule that will guide you, so that you don't end up saying things that are not directly helpful to your research research objective. That is why you must have a schedule for your interview, the things you want to ask. And you just provide enough structure to ensure consistency across interviews, while remaining open to emergent insights. Interview give room for insights that the researcher may not even know about or have read about. But then the schedule keeps you consistent and gives you a kind of roadmap on where you are going. It's not a rigid script, but It's a structure that will guide you so that you don't end up not getting questions that deal with your research objectives. Then, as far as interview is concerned, you have core question types. They have grand tour questions. Those ones are broad, descriptive prompts that invite a respondent to narrate a process or their experience. For example, you can ask, could you walk me through a typical workday when an unexpected unexpected audit occurs, and the person tells you everything. You can also have mini tour question, like, what specific steps do you take immediately after receiving an exception alert? So if you can ask a grand tour question and the person ends up giving you a broad answer that does not touch the specific items in your schedule, if that occurs, then you need to use mini tour question and be more specific so that you can get what you are looking for. Then we also have probing strategies where the interviewer probe the respondent to explore deeper layers without leading the participants, because you are always careful not to lead so as to avoid the social desirability bias. But you can probe. You can ask questions that, could you explain what you mean by system friction, so that the person will now explain more on a particular subject matter. We have clarification probe where you have a question like, you mentioned feeling pressure during that meeting. What specifically created that pressure? So with that, the person will start listing, or maybe identify one particular thing that that caused the pressure, and that may be what you need to conclude on your research, or it may lead you to a particular thing that you have not even touched. Okay, and you can also be silent or pause after an initial answer. Maybe somebody gives a broad response. You can keep pause for a while, and when you pause for a while, you didn't take on the next question immediately. That pause may prompt the person to explain more. The person will now start explaining more, or give instances to what he means in the first response that he gave. Those are strategies that or questioning strategies or interview strategies that that can be applied during the interview. So the structural flow of an interview schedule starts with preamble and consent. Yes, I said before that consent is very, very important in interview schedule, so that you can always prove that there was a consent before the interview. Then after that, there is opening or warm-up questions that to establish that the person is qualified to be you don't come to interview to know that the person is the right respondent. No, you must have established that the person, but during the interview, you use the warm-up questions to establish it so that it can be on record that the person is qualified to be there. Not that you're establishing it at that point, but to have it on record, because most interviews, academic interviews, are recorded for maybe the supervisors or the research teams to vet at the end of the day. So you now ask core phenomenon questions. How do team members handle situations where formal guidelines conflict with deadlines? These are open-ended questions where the person will now have to maybe use life experiences or narrate. Then what you have here will now tell you whether to dig and use that probing strategy. Then after after you have gotten what you want, or after some time, or maybe towards the end of the interview, you will have to now cool down and debrief. Maybe ask if there are other things that you have not covered, or what the person feel is important and has not been said. Okay, that's the structural flow. So, another thing that is important as far as data collection is concerned is instrument pretesting and validation protocols. You have to validate your instrument to be sure, because most times what one person is seeing, you may miss out some things. So it is always important to validate your instrument. Expert review is there, cognitive interviewing, think aloud protocol. That's the instruments. That's is usually for those who are using interviews, and you can get small sample of 5 to 10 participants, and while asking them to verbalize their thoughts as they interpret and answer each question. So with that, you can find ambiguous terms and hidden assumptions or awkward phrasing, and you correct it. Then you have pilot testing, which is the chief of them.
Choose love over money or run back.
Okay. You can have a pilot testing where you run a trial deployment of a small sample, 30 to 50, matching target population to check response distribution, and even whether your skip logic performance is working. That's for this is in assumption that you are using online questionnaire method. Completion timing, item reliability. All these things can impact on how people answer your question. If your timing is too much, the people can decide to submit without finishing, and it impacts on the result you have at the end of the day. So that is why pilot testing is very, very important. It serves as a diagnostic auditing tool whose goal is to evaluate how well your measurement instrument performed and fix flaws before the main survey deployment. So that is why you can run this pilot for questionnaire. You can also run it for interview. For interview, you can get like 2 persons and interview them and find out who, and ask and record the difficulties they have, the hesitation, non-verbal, this thing, whether they became tired, express fatigue, the question is too much, all that, so that you'll be able to correct accordingly before the main survey takes place. Important post-collection steps for pilot data. You analyze, okay, for pilot, like a pilot study, that's what I've explained some of these things. You analyze the field mechanics and response behavior. Evaluate the operational efficiency of the administration process, like the completion time, whether the completion time exceeded 15 to 20 minutes. If you have a if you have a questionnaire or survey that will exceed 20 minutes, you may need to reward the or warn the respondents, or maybe a kind of give them a kind of what do they call it, a kind of enticement, in a way to encourage them. So because some survey, like there is a big study uh, we did recently. It's a very big study that is funded by TED Fund. So we have to we have to cover as many grounds as possible that we are captured in the proposal. So naturally our questionnaire was very long. We know that it will be, people will feel all the questions are relevant, but we will have to warn them on time, that brief them, not warning, a kind of chipping it in the consent, that it will take your time, and because of that we are giving this kind of data. And many people, we have so many respondents and qualified to fill the question. So that is what can happen. So you need to analyze your field mechanism and be sure so that you can do the right thing to get the right results. Dropout rate. If in your pilot study the dropout rate is much, then you need to work more on your instrument. You now check whether your skip logic is working or then another important post collection step is the audit item level response pattern. You have to run some basic descriptive statistics to know whether there are missing values, and if there are many, or you now see whether people we are choosing prefer not to say, skip, and all that. You now check the variance. If your questions have a low variance, it can mean something, especially a question that is not naturally supposed to have a low variance. If where you see a low variance is in a question that tests or qualifies people to answer or continue with your questionnaire, it should not be a problem. Let's say in that question that I told you our our qualification. Sorry, that have the skip logic. Sorry, continue or end logic. So if that question have everybody there in that everyone that answered that question, there was no variance, 100% answered yes, it should not be a problem. So we are saying for questions that other questions that are other than this type of question, if there is a low variance, it means that it lacks discriminatory power, and you have to look at the question again and maybe construct it accordingly. And that is why it is important to do pilot study before you launch out. If people are using other category in the pilot study, everybody, almost or greater percentage of persons use others. It means that the options you brought out are not sufficient, and you need to reward or capture other options. So you also test the psychometric reliability when you may need to check the internal consistency by using the Cronbach's alpha reliability, calculating the Cronbach's alpha reliability coefficient for each scale, so that you will know the internal consistency of the a coefficient of 70%. Indicates acceptable internal consistency. Then we also have item total correlations, where you look at check if the individual items correlate weakly with the overall score. So score of less than 30% may indicate a weak correlation. So you need to also conduct briefing and debriefing sessions, to look at what you have, the things that came out, the results of your pilot study. So you conduct briefing where you have enumerators and field assistants. There may be need for meeting after the pilot study, and where you ask them questions that may not be in the results, in the numerical results of the pilot test. So you will now ask, we have questions on did people show difficulty, show that some questions were difficult for them to understand. You will now because those people we are observing, the people they gave the questionnaire, did they feel that any options or any of the options we are missing? So you need their feedback to. Okay, this is where we noted that a pilot testing is also necessary for interview studies, for individuals to check for question clarity, probe effectiveness, and all that. You need to document revisions and finalize on your instrument before you launch out. Ethical primary and secondary data collection. For primary data, we have talked about informed consent, get their consent, make sure that there is privacy and anonymity, decouple people's identifiable information, from your file, because anybody can get access to the file. So you need to decouple those information. Where you are working with vulnerable population. For example, there is a study that we collaborated with people some researchers in the agricultural faculty in my school. And the respondents we have in that study are students, teenagers, because we actually wanted to know, we actually wanted to know, we're actually researching on unpaid give in their homes and how it has led to sustainable economy of the small households in the rural areas. So we didn't. If we ask the parents, they may look at us and know what to tell us, because some people may not want us to think that they are laboring their children. Some people, so we need to get the teenagers responses, and these are vulnerable groups. If I'm looking at it that way, you need to, when you are dealing with this kind of groups, you need to there must be ethical approval, even from their parents, from their schools. If you are going to their school, the school will now have to alert their parents for those approvals. It's for your own good, so that people will not come to for the to avoid litigations that may arise from it, and even your research may be called back. So secondary data ethics, the source have to be legitimate. You have to comply when there is licensing agreements and terms of use and copyright boundaries. You have to, some schools will tell you to publish the secondary data you use. You have to put it as appendix. Now, if you are using a data that is internal and you are told in the agreement or copyright that it is not to be published, then you need to tell your faculty or your supervisor that this cannot be appended as appendix, and they will give you a waiver for that. So we go to the next one, coding. Sorry, please. Coding. Should be 4. Coding and organizing collected data. The quantitative data coding, you develop a comprehensive code book. After you have gone to the field and come and do it even while you are still on the field. It's different from the data set that is where you label the different variables, measurement type, and maybe numeric codes that you are assigning to the scales. Okay, if there are missing data, people that refuse, people that do not know, people that decide not to answer. Book is the master blueprint that defines every variable in your data set. It acts as the translation keywords and statistical software. It explains the coding rules, like minus 99 is for refused, for don't know, not applicable, or questions that we are skipped. Okay, so I'm not trying. This is what a code book will look like. This one is variable name, and the label is there to define each variable name that will be in your data set spreadsheet now. So this for the measurement type, you have nominal and ordinal. Then numeric value codes that are in line with the scales will have to also be there. the missing value codes are also defined. So for the respondents, we see that the respondents are assigned ID. Some depending on your sampling size, it normally starts from 001 or 0001, depending on the sample size. Everybody have this what we have on the screen is a part of a data set view where respondent ID is showing this. We have respondent 101, 102, 103. You can start from 1 to wherever it ends, but this is a replica of what you can have in a data set view. Market frequency, where the person answer that is always at the market. The scale will now, and it shows always, and the scale will now be 5. Market share, depending on what the questionnaire asked, you assign the value. And where the person is saying is keeping the question, you have this minus 77 there. And where you have do not know or prefer not to answer, there are codes for each of these things in your data sets. And that is why the code book is important, so that a person that is somebody that is vetting or studying your transcripts or your research documents will be able to know what is what or what has been done. Okay. I gave an exercise there, but for want of time, I was like, participant 105 shops at an open market. The market frequency, it shops at the open market and weekly. So the market frequency will be assigned is 4. According to that questionnaire we have, the market frequency will be assigned is 4. Sorry. If he gets 60% of their food there, it will be the right scale for that 60% is 3. If he's aware of the food sharing program, awareness is 1. Why those that are not aware will be scored 0. Rates, how he rates his knowledge as moderate, and knowledge depth will now be 3. And he learned about it from only market banner. That question say tick as many as apply. So he ticked only market banner. It means you'll be given 1. If he ticks many, if he ticks like up to 4 mouth, family member told him, it means he's going to get 1 for that particular variable. So in data organization and lineage, you maintain strict file structure. You structure your file and maintain all of them. You have your raw data, you have the clean data, you have the script or code book. There should be version control. Even if the raw data should be there, even if you have cleaned your data, don't overwrite it, so that anybody that wants to see what has occurred in the process of your research can be able to vet it and have confidence in your conclusions. Qualitative data coding, that is thematic analysis, where the person codes the responses got from the interview, so as to plug it back into the research, analyze the responses, and arrive at a conclusion. You start from raw text, and you give a first order code before you now do a mid-level grouping, because you remember that it's open-ended. People answer the way A will talk is not the way B will talk, but at times, and also the language they will use. They may use 2 different languages for one particular construct. So that is where mid-level grouping comes. You consolidate them into related code and reach your overarching teams that gives narrative insights that to answer your research question. Step by step coding. I did a step by step coding using that our food sharing study. When you ask an interview, when the interviewer asks, can you describe how you learn about community food sharing initiative while doing your regular shopping? And the person narrates all this. The first order, I came to the market every Saturday morning. That's market. How he and the something about it. So you see that there are two ways now that he heard about it, and then you talk about distribute food, um surplus food to low income families. He's now telling you the type of food sharing program that he had and how he perceived it to be. And if he because he heard it from somebody he trusted, he is now analyzing it as something that is legitimate. So all this, you from the raw test, there is a first order code. First order code has been assigned to them, and before you know it, you now that's just for one person. Now, when you now have as many people as possible, you will now use the first order code. You will now start collapsing the first order uh, codes into categories that will be used in your research. Passive fiscal signage, market information boards, leaflet at the entrance. All these are talking about physical market touch points, word of mouth, legit vendor trust, peer recommendation, relational social network transmission, passive program purpose, um, distribution mechanics, and eligibility awareness is now what we use to code your operational knowledge acquisition, to judge knowledge or awareness. Now, from there, you can now develop your overarching themes, and analyze the passive signage creates visual exposure, but active awareness and passive credibility are unlocked through pre-existing social trust between the buyer and the vendor. So from here now, you are taking what you are going to use for your analysis, your thematic analysis in your study, and then you build a qualitative code book, just like you have done for for quantitative study. Awareness touch points, mention of physical signage, poster, brand, and all the rest. You have a touch. You have a code name for it. All the all the all the interviewees, as in the respondents, you are now collapsing what each person said in the code that you have already defined, and you are bringing it together in order to start your explanation. So we talk about cleaning data sets and preparing for analysis. I think I'm rushing now, 150. You want to clean your data sets. So from the original raw data that you have, you keep a copy, and then you take it. You have a new you copy to another spreadsheet where you are now uh, um, you duplicate, where you now start looking for um, omissions or things that should not be there. So the workflow for cleaning data set starts from raw data set ingestion. You have your raw, define it, then you duplicate, you make a range and logic checks to catch impossible values and skip logic breaks. Yes, people who do not that should have people who skipped, or that where the skip logic did not work, So missing data, where there is missing data, you also verify from your spreadsheet, and now decide what to do. Outlier assessment, you now look at if there are outliers, extreme values, or impossible values. Okay, impossible values is the first thing you check in step 2. But outlier assessments are maybe valid entries, but they are too extreme. So that in that one, that particular side, you don't you check or maybe use your remove or delete anything, no, or disqualify, no. You just have to use other data transformation method to standardize the entries and possibly recode the items before you can have a analysis ready data set. So those are what we explained in the following slides. So I will just go to the last part, which is the plan. I missed the plan. Implementing the plan, data collection plan. You start with your protocol and tool preparation. The tool we are talking about is your data collection tool. After you have finished preparation and validating it, the next thing will be your pilot testing and calibration. You come back after you have tested you have gone for your pilot testing. If there are needs for corrections, you do. Then phase 3 will now be to train your enumerators where enumerators are needed, or make a standardization so that everybody will, or all the field assistants will work with one standard or one checklist, or do the same thing. Not this person is doing this and the other person is doing it the other way. So after that, the field execution will start, and you will now secure at the end of that field execution, you now have your raw data sets, and that will be the end of the data collection. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh, Stan, are you there? All right. Thank you so much. Stan, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much, Ma. We are delighted to have you. In fact, it was one of the best sections that we have had, an insight on why we should not relegate the use of primary data, because there is this agenda ongoing about how people can manipulate the use of primary data and how it has come under scrutiny, why people should probably stop using it, switch towards the use of systematic literature review, and or more of using secondary data. But you have actually given people the reason why they should and how they can make their primary data rigid and have high level of reliability. So that even when they're being questioned on how they came about with their data collection and data presentation or whatever, they can be able to stand their ground to make a good defense on that. So thank you so much, Ma, for the time. We are delighted to have you here. The participants, I have dropped a message previously and said if you have any question, you should pop that in the chat box, but I have not been able to see any questions so far. If you want to ask your question, just do that by raising your hand. I can usher you in to ask your question. I'm going to give 5 minutes.
There was a timer. think that by
Yeah,
the time I saw Chioma raising hands. Okay,
okay.
Chidema.
Yeah, Chidema. Okay. Yeah, Chidema, you can ask your question, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, Dr. Sylvia. I really enjoyed your presentation. It really hit some misunderstanding I had with running primary data. But my question is coming from secondary data because I mostly use secondary data. Whenever I'm using secondary data, and I usually notice that some data are missing, and you pointed to that. So how do we take care of that? Do we just leave it blank? There was this concept I heard of, like doing interpolation. Is it right to do so, or we should just leave it blank? That's the one question that I have.
Thank you. Dr. Sylvia?
Other questions, other people asking questions.
Okay, that's fine. So
Do treat
do
it
we
as they
have,
come.
okay, thank you. Do we have more persons with question?
I also have another question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay.
The second question I have is with creating, indices with different indicators. For example, let me use Human Development Index, made up of 3 indices, where we are trying to capture education, health, and growth. So what if I'm running an analysis and I feel that one variable does not entirely capture what I want to study, and I want to create an indices, like an index that can capture what I want to study? So how do I do that if that particular index I want to study is not yet published, like Human Development Index?
Okay. Do we have any more person with question, please?
I didn't get that second question clearly, please. That second question from Chidema, I didn't get it clearly.
Chidema,
Okay.
can you repeat your question, please?
My question is, if I want to capture a variable, or if I want to measure something that, how would I put it now? I want to study, let me give an instance. I want to study environmental sustainability. But environmental sustainability, there are different indicators that I can use to study it. And I do not just want to study it using one variable. I want to create an index, something like Human Development Index, which is made up of education, health, and growth. So if I want to create an index like that to measure environmental sustainability, how do I merge? For instance, if I've gotten 4 variables of environmental sustainability, how do I merge those 4 variables into one index?
I think the question is a bit confusing to me, but I don't know if Dr. Sylvia got the question right. Are you talking about using control variables in your research?
Several
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about control variables. I'm talking about.
I don't think it's human development.
You said?
Yeah, Dr. Sylvia, I think we are struggling to hear you because of network.
Yeah, I think our network is somehow breaking. But there was something you said before, Doc. I mean, you can repeat it.
Okay. What I got from what she said is, let's say a variable that does not exist in secondary, but other aspects of that variable exist, and she wants to use all of them. And she's thinking, what we should do a checklist, a kind of index to capture it. Yes, it is possible. There's what we call content analysis, which people often use for sustainability rating for companies. There are records of there are some firms have taken the course of measuring the sustainability practices of companies, nations, and all that, and they have the, but still individual researchers can still decide that they want to make their own checklist. But you have to define your checklist, ensure that your checklist will also go through a kind of validatory or expert validation. So to ensure that your concepts about that variable, the concept you have developed in your study about that variable is well captured in that your checklist before you can now use it and score the company or country to get a numerical score for your analysis. So it is possible to do that, and it is, I think it is that is a kind is a primary data collection, and is a primary data collection or is a quantitative, because your checklist, it was developed by you.
So
And
is it more of a mix method?
Data
You're
by
using
yourself.
both.
Then to talk of your first question. Is my network unsteady?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's still breaking.
I'm having a network.
I think it's better now.
Yeah, I think it's better now.
Are we okay now?
Yes, it's fine.
Did you get my response to the last question, Chidema?
Yes, I did. I got it.
Interpolation is possible for where data is missing in secondary data. Interpolation is possible, but like I said before, where you have a lot of missing years in a data, it may not give you the best to start interpolating for all several years for a particular country is not really the best. So maybe sometimes you will think of maybe leaving out that particular no, I don't know if I'm still being heard. Okay. You may consider leaving out that particular country where you have a lot of missing data. Where you have a lot of, but if it's just few, yes, the interpolation is considered okay.
Okay.
To fill
Thank
the
you.
missing the data. Then we also have cases of unbalanced panel. Yes, where the data is missing for some years. It's also an option. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc, for doing justice to those two questions. In absence of further questions from person, because I've checked the chat box, there's no question there, and nobody has actually raised their hands. Doc, we want to appreciate you once again for taking your time to honor our invitation and also for enlightening us on both sources of data collection, primary and secondary. So it was very insightful. And on behalf of the three organizations, I want to say thank you so much. And please remain open to us, because we might still reach out to you again for further assistance or support. So thank you so much, and God bless you, ma. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Doc. Let me join my brother Stanley and my namesake and my class. We were all there in Kumas. So I was in IRUP.
Wow.
He was in accounting.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let me join him to say thank you. I know you very well from accounting department. So it's been I'm very happy to have recollect the face again after many years of struggling at Comas. I think next week, Stan, we are having Professor Alex Osuala.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
he's going to handle I think, the quantitative. He's very good in econometrics.
Yes,
So,
he is.
so yeah, we're actually going to have him next week. So I'm very happy to see my people from my alma mater speaking at the global stage, because here in this program, it's made up of candidates from different parts of the world, Nigeria, Ghana, and all that. And most times we don't even know that what we are doing is actually ringing a bell out there. So, and in most cases, I always get message from people from I don't even know. They will say, "Oh, they watched one of your sessions, and we saw that it was very enlightening." And that person is coming from maybe watching this from Europe or any other part. So most of the things we do here, we think it's just here, but it's actually ringing a bell. And we are so happy that we are bringing more youth to the limelight. And we keep doing our
Thank you
best
very much.
to see where we can get to. So thank you so much.
All right.
Just a brief announcement. Our class today, our next class is supposed to be the graduate class, but we are not going to, because we are supposed to have GRE and IELTS today. But next week we have something similar. So we decided to combine the two classes, I think. So we're going to let you guys know when that class, although I think I've told the Precious to post this in the group chat. That is one. Then the AI class will still hold around 6 p.m. today. And then finally, I believe that most of you have seen the announcement of our recent collaboration with ICMA. This announcement is particularly going to be very resourceful or very, very insightful. In fact, I believe that this class, the research class, are going to be one of the beneficiaries of the competition we're about to do, because this collaboration with ICMA is going to help us know those who have actually learned something from this class. So we are looking forward to have a competition, a research competition, whereby you submit your research and then you present your research there is something we call Pecha Kucha presentation format. Pecha Kucha presentation format. Have you heard about it? Have anybody heard about that before? If anybody has ever, okay, you've not heard about it, so that's what we're
Yes.
going to do. So who is speaking?
He's
So
talking, speaking.
okay, so it's a research format that what we are planning is that you guys are going to um the applicants, they're going to submit 20 slides, and they're going to present that 20 slides in 6 minutes 40 seconds. And it means that we are expecting you to spend 20 seconds on each slide. So it's a research. So you are going to write it. We are going to bring out the topic I think our application portal should be open by October, and the application will hold between October and December. And after December, January to March, will be the review. We are currently seeking for lecturers from different parts of the world to review the essays. The research. And then after that research, the selected people would be announced, I think, in April. So that is the first one. Then those people that are selected, we are expecting you in the first instance to submit the paper. Like from October to December, you submit the paper. I think we are expecting you to submit, I think, abstract or so, and we are going to give you the number of words we wanted to write. And then the second one will be when you now submit the 6 minutes 40 seconds PowerPoint presentation of your research. But it's not everyone that will kind of get to that second stage. So from the first stage, we will cut down people, because not every paper will move to the next stage. So the second stage will now be that people that will now submit a 20 slide, 20 seconds each slide, that will be complete. That will be a 6 minutes, 40 seconds presentation. Then the review committee will watch your presentations because we're going to give you guys rubrics and everything. So the selected people, I think we will announce the finalists by May. And then the finalists will now be invited to attend the ICMA conference that we hold in September here in the United States of America. And the conference is going to hold at a place called Philadelphia. So, and then you will now come and present your paper before the whole world. And that conference has over 5,000 attendees from different parts of the world coming to US. So it's going to be something that, and we are going to select people from undergraduate, master's, and PhD level. So we will conduct a webinar session separately on that, probably during the application period, that is around October. So keep on following I don't know, most of you, if you are following our social media, it's quite unfortunate that most of you are not even following the social media, but we're not going to send anybody private message or whatever. So every information about the competition will be posted on our LinkedIn, our Facebook, and all our social media platforms. So if you're not following there, I'm sorry, you're going to be left out. So and we'll try as much as we can to post information about it from time to time. So I think why I'm making this announcement here is because I think this research class are going to be supposed to be the first beneficiary of this kind of a competition, because all the things we've learned here is what you're going to use to write that paper. So because we're going to give out topics. So based on your knowledge you've gathered so far. So, and we decided to make this to start, that is the application period to start the 12 weeks if a program will end, because we are ending this 12 weeks skills program, I think in September. That's when we'll have our last class, sometime in September. So as we are dropping this, we are starting that project. And our reason for announcing winners in May is to allow them to prepare for their visa, because the winners, we're not going to send them all the information they need to prepare their visa. We are going to send them all the official invitation, which they will use to go to the embassy to apply for their visas and all that. And I think there are some, we will let you guys know the sponsorship, because those that will win are going to receive some assistance that will help them to arrive, to come to US. Then we are not giving people that will come to US and run away. So there are so many things, there are so many agreements we're going to sign with you guys, because we know that a lot of people they come to America and then so we will monitor you guys and make sure that you finish after the conference, you go back to your country, because we actually want you to go back to your country to that's even what EduAfrique stands for. Those that will come abroad, learn, and provide whatever, like assist to develop both their host and their home country. So we're going to be very careful about that, so that you don't come and run away. So because what you're coming with is going to be visitor's visa, and it's required that, I think that visa currently is even 3 months, so you shouldn't escape. All right, I think someone is raising her. Cost rep, are you raising your hand or something? Is it cost rep or?
No, it's me, Raphael from Ghana.
Okay, Raphael.
Yes, just a quick one. I wanted to direct this question to Mr. Stanley Okafor. I was watching a YouTube video on EduAfrique platform concerning research fellowship, and then he as chairman was saying that they want to have a strong research team for EduAfrique and then all that. I didn't see that early, and I just saw it just yesterday night. So I wanted to know whether that program is still holding, or that is what has changed into this scale first before that, so that, because I'm interested in that research fellowship this thing.
Okay, Raphael, yeah, to answer your question, that project is still ongoing, right? We have not closed the window yet. And it's part of the benefit of this 12 weeks program, because I know we have not been able to explain to you some of the benefit that will come at the end of this program, because other than the bigger picture, which the founder mentioned to you now about the collaboration with one of the biggest organizations in US, which can give you a platform for you to travel, mingle with people, network, and be able to at least see how it works in the global stage. There are still other benefits that we are going to enlist towards the end of this 12 weeks program. One of them is that will be a kind of a mini selection of persons for a one-to-one mentorship. And then the mentorship will start from mentoring you to the point of seeing how you can publish a peer review paper in a high-rated publishers, right? So we mentor a group of persons. So that will be an exercise that can a kind of bring people on board that can enable a selection of persons. We have not come up with the number of persons we are going to select, but at the end of the day, we select a group of persons that are going to do one-on-one mentorship and guide them on how to make publications from the beginning to the end, right? Then also we have the group of Edo Africa team of researchers, right? We have that also set up at the end of this 12 weeks program. This is just little of what we are planning. So at some point during these 12 weeks, we will be able to explain to everyone. That will be when we'll have probably one program, like out of the 3 programs we are doing, we'll merge it to be just one, and then we can be able to explain to everybody what we are having as a benefit at the end of this program. Apart from you enhancing your skill and developing your research talent, right? There's still other things that you can benefit. That is the reason why I usually tell people that don't hide yourself, don't feel shy, come out, ask questions, right? There is no question that is considered useless, right? Ask your question and somebody will answer your question. And through questions, you can be able to learn more. You can have answers to your worries, right? You can even be able to enhance your potential further through questions. And also, you don't need to limit your exposure only on what is being taught within the 2-hour sections. Sometimes do your research before the training section. Do your research after the training section. If you have concerns, we have a WhatsApp group. Drop your questions there. Usually, I used to pop in there to check if there are any concerns, any questions. Nobody always asks questions. I don't know why. You can ask questions there. And if it's something that we cannot answer directly, we can take that question to the guest speaker and then seek for their support in answering those questions. And then we can give you a feedback to it. So it's just a kind of a challenge. So to answer your question is ongoing. And it will establish that fully or conclude on that after the 12 weeks program, Raphael.
Okay, so please, thank you very much.
So at this point in time, I think we are good to say we have completed the training section for today. Once more, thank you so much, Dr. Sylvia, for your time and for enlightening us on these sources of data and how we can go about doing it. So I will see you guys next week, and we'll be having Professor Oswala on board next week. So get yourself ready, do your research, and then put on your questions and make sure you participate. These sections are always lively when you ask questions. If you are quiet, nobody's knowing if you're following or you're not following. But when you ask questions, we have that perception that you guys are following up and you guys are understanding what is going on. But if you remain dormant, there's no way we can be able to evaluate your assimilation level, right? So we continue to encourage you guys. Ask your question. If you cannot speak, like you think you are shy of camera, drop your question on the chat box. Somebody will read it, and then with that, your questions can be answered. So I wish you guys a wonderful weekend. And then for those who are in for 6 p.m. class, feel free to join. And then, as I said, I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Let me end the call now. Thank you all.